Happy week 3, guys. Welcome into the Betting Pros live stream. Matt Perrault, Pat Fitzmaurice, with you for the next 30 or so minutes, breaking down all the late movements, player props, and yes, that Wong teaser could be given here during this next 30-minute stretch. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys being a part of this. If you have not subscribed yet to the Betting Pros YouTube channel, please do that so you're notified whenever we go live here every Sunday morning. Pat, how are you? How did week 2 go for you last week?
Week 2 wasn't too bad, Matt. The player props hit well. Not great on all the games, but the player props were fantastic. And ready for another week 3. I just wish we were getting a better split of games today, Matt. We're getting this 9-3 split.
Yeah.
The games they're giving us in the late afternoon, like 2 of them are projected as double digit. We've got double digit spreads in 2 of them, so maybe a couple of blowouts. And then not exactly a marquee Sunday night game either. So a lot of stuff going on in the noon to 3 central window here for me. But late afternoon is looking pretty gross.
Well, here in Las Vegas, they take offense to that. They're all jacked up and excited. We got Sunday Night Football. Steeler fans have invaded this city. It's amazing. This is the first time Pittsburgh has ever played in Las Vegas. So this happened. It's weird. I don't know why the Patriots have played here as much. I guess the NFL just likes that, connection between the 2 programs with Josh McDaniels and whatnot, because the Patriots will play here again this year. And it's, I think, the 4th or 5th time they've played here so far since the Raiders moved to Las Vegas. So it's a very weird thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers, now their fans have all come in. They started arriving on Friday. My gut tells me it's 60-40 at Allegiant tonight in favor of the Steelers. It might be more than that, depending upon how aggressive Steeler fans got in the secondary market to buy tickets. But we'll get to that game here in a little bit, because it's going to be, I think, a pretty fun game to break down, given where that defense is for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, let's start with the Chargers and the Vikings. It's me versus you. I do another show called The Bostonian versus the Book, where I go up against a bookmaker. This is Pat versus Matt. You like the under. I like the over. 54 for me, 54.5 for you. There's been buyback on the under. The number is coming back towards you. Certain books are at 53.5. DraftKings is at 54 at the moment, at the peak, which was 54.5. So you got the best number from an under perspective, but why the under here in this game for you, Pat?
Look, Matt, this is strictly a principled stand on the fact that since the start of the 2022 regular season, when games have closed with a total of 54 points or higher, the under is 4-0. So it's just, there's so many ways that a total this high where the over can be short-circuited. You can get, a couple drives that wind up with field goals instead of touchdowns, a few turnovers, a long drive that results in a turnover, maybe a field goal instead of a touchdown. So I just worry about this number being too high for any NFL game. But I can't make a real game specific case for this, since we've got 2 great offense going against 2 pretty terrible defenses.
Yeah, for me, it comes down to the fact that everyone in the content space, and maybe you think so too, Justin Jefferson over 100 yards receiving is sort of like a given today. Like, everyone's giving that out, saying Tyreek Hill went for 215 in week number 1 against this defense. The Chargers have no pass rush to talk about. The Vikings are going to put up big numbers here, go and hammer on the passing props. Well, if that's the case, unless the Chargers get blown out, which I don't think the Vikings defense is going to be able to completely shut down Herbert and company, I think we see a pass-heavy game. I think we see an up-and-down type of battle, and we've already seen the Chargers play a game in which they've covered and gone over a line like this at 54.5 in week 1 against the Dolphins, where they lost the game 36-34. So I think we're in for a back-and-forth type of battle, and I like Justin Herbert over 283.5 yards passing, because I don't think they're going to run the ball that effectively today. I mean, how do you feel about the Chargers passing offense against this defense for the Vikings?
Yeah, love that. I got Herbert at, I think, 277.5 earlier in the week. At 283.5, I would still think it's a really strong percentage play. I do think you're going to see, especially with Josh Kelly being just, mediocre. I know the Vikings run defense got chewed up last week by DeAndre Swift. And maybe Josh Kelly can do some damage against it, but he's a pedestrian replacement level back. So I do think the Chargers are going to be pass heavy today.
The line on this game is really wild. It opened up 2.5 for the Chargers. It's completely flipped to -1 on the Vikings. Now there's been some buyback in other places in foreign countries where we're seeing a pick. Now Caesars just flipped as we're talking. Caesars and Circa, they've both flipped here to a pick here for the Vikings and the Chargers. Who wins this game?
I like the Vikings. US Bank is a hard place for teams to come in and get wins, although we did see the Buccaneers do it in week 1, but I think that's part of it. I think the Vikings are going to want to get that bad taste out of their mouths. They were embarrassed in week 1, so I think they're going to have vengeance on their mind.
Do you subscribe to the idea that the loser of this game, their year is over at 0-3?
I think so. Yeah, tough to start 0-3, especially if you're in the AFC. I mean, look at some of the teams you've got in front of you. And
Right.
even in the NFC, it would be hard for the Vikings to get off the deck. And granted, tricky opening schedule for them, but man, like that toe stubbing against the Buccaneers at home in week 1 could come back to haunt them.
That's where I am. Look, if the Chargers lose this game, and if you like to bet in futures markets or anticipate line movement, I mean, Brandon Staley is going to become the most likely first fired coach in football if the Chargers open up 0-3. So he's coaching, I think, for his job today. That's why I like the Chargers. I think the Vikings they have a young coaching staff. They've invested long term, and they didn't renew Kirk Cousins. So I think they're anticipating that next year is going to be kind of a reset type of season for them, unless Kirk Cousins does incredible things. And opening up 0-3 is not incredible things. So I think they're anticipating somewhat of a rebuild coming down the pike, and they like the coaching staff that they currently have. So I think the Chargers win just based upon that. I think that the backs are against the wall for that entire coaching staff, and I expect them to do everything in the kitchen sink. I think is coming out here with this Chargers offense today, and that's why I tend to like the over, because it could be good or it could be really bad. It could be interceptions, fumbles, a bunch of bad things could happen. Vikings defensive touchdown, Chargers defensive touchdown, not crazy. All right, Tennessee and Cleveland. This number opened up at 4.5. It's been bet down to 3.5. The total is 38 and dropping here. Most are leaning towards going to 37.5. We might wind up getting down there between these two run-heavy football teams. I've seen a lot of people like the Browns to win this game today. I'm not so sure on this. Where are you on Cleveland, Tennessee?
I'm sort of with you, Matt. Like, I'm skeptical that the Browns make this. I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns won, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And maybe the weather conditions. We're supposed to get a windy day in Cleveland, and that's always one of the windiest stadiums anyway.
Right.
And so I think maybe that forces Cleveland to be run heavy, and that plays right into the Titans' hands because they have a bad pass defense and a really good run defense. So if Cleveland has to play on offense with sort of one hand tied behind their backs, I think this could be a low scoring affair. And we've seen the Titans play 2 really close games so far. Like, Mike Vrabel will pull you into a, mud wrestling match if he can. And I think it might be one of those games in Cleveland today.
Where are you on Deshaun Watson's future in Cleveland?
Oh man, there is a lot to unpack with that, Matt. And it hasn't looked good in the passing game. I don't think the old early career Houston era Deshaun Watson is coming back. Like, he's just not that good a passer anymore, it appears. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just they're obviously locked into him contractually for a while, so they might have to just kind of take their medicine for a couple of years.
It's unbelievable. I mean, that contract that they gave him, the amount of excitement that Cleveland had, they thought they were going to be right at the top of that division, and man alive, I don't know. I can't trust it. I don't like the offense. I think Watson looks pedestrian. I mean, he looks like, he might be a starting quarterback in this game still, but he's nothing like what he was in terms of a guy who got the biggest contract in NFL history at the time that he signed it. So, no, I like Tennessee today. I don't like the Cleveland Browns today at home. Even at home, I like the Titans. Jacksonville hosting Houston. There are 2 plays that everyone is making in survivor pools. This is one of them. Jaguars 7.5-point favorites at home against Houston, 43.5. We've seen some uptick on the over here late with some money coming in, driving this thing over 43. Key number of 44 is where I think this number would stop. I don't think it would cross 44. Can Houston hang here? Because this could be a teaser special for me. I may pull this down to 1.5 and take Jacksonville.
I think they can hang. I mean, I do think the Jags are going to win the game, but I worry about the Jags covering this big number when they just haven't looked that good this season. Like, they kind of struggled to put away the Colts in week 1, and then they struggled to generate any offense against the Chiefs in week 2. So I just I'm not touching this one, Matt. I just can't lay that many points with the Jags yet. Not when we haven't seen Trevor Lawrence really get untracked yet.
Right. No, I'm with you. I mean, I think that's why you pull it down below 3 and 1.5. It's basically a money line play for the Jags, which,
Sure.
I mean, the Texans defensive line is so banged up and offensive line so banged up that I don't know how the offense looks, even though I think this could be an overplay as well. I mean, there could be scoring here in this, given the way both defenses looked, even though last week against the Chiefs, I mean, if you're a Jags fan, you got to be kind of kicking yourself, right? Your defense kept you in that game and you just couldn't get over the hump. Where's the offense going to come for the Jags? Where is the offense we thought this team was going to look like, right? This was supposed to be one of the better offenses in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they can get it going today because we know the Texans can never stop the run. So it could be a big day for Travis Etienne. I sort of like the over for him on 67.5 or 68.5, depending on where you get it. So I like the over on his rushing and no Stingley in the Texans secondary, which is going to maybe help the Jaguars passing game get going. So they could do it here. I'm just a little concerned that we haven't seen it happen yet.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, I may tease it down, get to a 3. That does qualify for a long teaser, just given where the total is right now at 43.5 for the Jaguars and the Texans. All right, the game that I'm the most interested in personally, because I'm a Patriot fan. Pats are on the road, 0-2 New England, 1-1 Jets. Number is down. Opened up at a pick. It's up to 3 now at DraftKings. It's 2.5 minus 120 at Caesars. Same thing with the Superbook here in Las Vegas. Same thing with Circa. They don't want to go to 3 because the pros clearly are going to take a +3 on the Jets from a home dog perspective. Total is down to 35. How low does this have to go before you bet over, Pat? What number do you need to bet over on Jets Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, it keeps getting lower. I think I locked it in earlier in the week at 37.5. I mean, I think I'd still bet it under, man. I cannot see this game getting over 30. Now they're talking about bad weather. Yeah. We know Bill Belichick has Zach Wilson's number, and there's no reason to believe that's not going to be the case again. I think no Dwayne Brown for
offensive lines.
It's just, and it's not like the Patriots offense is going to have much luck against this Jets defense, which I still think might be the best defense in the NFL. So this just seems like it's going to be a rock fight.
Yeah, it looks like this is the game that's going to have the most issues. It's going to be wet throughout the game. Looks like 10 to 15 mile per hour wind gusts. Sustained winds with gusts up to 25 and 30 miles per hour for two teams that both want to run the football anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's there, but it does factor in beautifully. I mean, this could be the other side of the Wong teaser before we get out of here. We'll see in the next 15 minutes where we go with this, because the Patriots now, if you get 2.5, the 3 worries me a little bit. I mean, it's on the way up there, but you want to cross off of 3 to qualify for a Wong teaser. But you got 2.5 pretty much across the board. A couple of the books have gone to 3, but you can tease it up to 8.5 and take the Jets at +8.5. And take the Jaguars down from 7.5 down to 1.5. And so that's potentially, I'll confirm it here before we get out of here, but that's the Wong teaser that I'm looking at. I'm also on under Zach Wilson, 177.5 passing yards here in this one. How do you feel about fading Zach?
Yep. Love that. I'm on the under for Zach Wilson too. It seems like a slam dunk.
In this environment, in the weather, and against this defense, I mean, if you're Robert Saleh, you've seen Zach Wilson play 2 times against Belichick at MetLife. He threw 4 picks in the first matchup. He threw 3 picks in the second matchup. He threw 2 picks last week on the road against Dallas. You got to figure like the team is like, look, just hand the ball off. Just give it to somebody else.
Yeah, the only way this one goes over is if some Patriots cornerback slips on the wet surface and lets Garrett Wilson go for a 90-yard touchdown. Like, that's the only way this one gets home.
I almost bet Garrett Wilson under 3.5 receptions. It was plus money last night at +124. Don't you feel like Belichick takes him away? I mean, that's what the Pats always do, take away the best weapon that the other team has.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that concerns me is like, what if they try to scheme it to him with like little bubble screens or just really easy completions? So that could do it. I mean, I would feel better about betting the under on his yardage total than his receptions total.
Yeah, it was 48.5. I was like, man, one good pop and he could get that. And then I thought the same thing that you thought. I was like, man, if they bubble screen him 3 or 4 times, like That's going to be that's going to be tough. Mims is asking, how do we feel about Calvin Ridley over 68.5 receiving yards for today, going back to the Jaguars game? I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical on that. That seems a little bit high. And you mentioned it. We haven't seen it yet, so it's tough to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reasonable chance that one, like, it's not one of my favorites, but if you forced me to bet that one, I think I would bet the over just because there's no Zay Jones for the Jaguars. It kind of eliminates one of the possible target options for Trevor Lawrence, and no Stingley for the Texans. So they're going to find it really hard to cover Calvin Ridley today.
All right, Pat, from a flipping line perspective, Green Bay was favored going into the night, going into the morning, and then the announcement came out that 4 Packer players will not be dressing for this game, and the line is completely flipped now to -1 for the New Orleans Saints, who are on the road at Lambeau Field. Total of this game is down to 41.5 here. This is like the biggest no-play game of the day for me. I have no idea what to make of this. Packers win, Saints win. Who do you like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm off this one too, Matt. I'm with you. I mean, I know a lot of money is pouring in on the Saints with the announcement that there's going to be no Aaron Jones, no Christian Watson, no David Bakhtiari for the Packers on offense, no Jair Alexander, their best cornerback on defense. So, but still, I mean, Green Bay, it's their home opener after a couple of road games. It's, a team with a pretty good pass rush that might be able to negate the absence of Jair Alexander if they can turn up the heat on Derek Carr. But man, the Saints defense has been really good so far. So I'm hesitant to do anything with this game. Like the total's just a little too low for me to want to bet this under. I'm close on the under, close on the Saints, but I just can't quite get there on either one.
I'm with you. Denver, Miami. This is a game. I bet the over in this game. I've seen some people take the under. I thought about taking the under. It's moved from 45.5 to 47.5. I don't have a large bet on this, but I didn't put on the juice. It's just a personal play of mine that I think the game is going to be high scoring. -6. This was the other idea of potentially pulling this down to Miami pick against Denver, but I can't get past this. I feel like the Broncos are live to win this game. Am I crazy?
Man, I mean, if they're going to circle the wagons, I suppose they could do it, but just after losing back-to-back home games to the Raiders and Commanders, like, I just can't trust them. I wouldn't mind like a small money line bet on them to, rebound after that, because they certainly have the taste of blood in their mouths so far, Matt. So maybe they do play like we get that wounded animal performance from the Broncos, because they're going to need it. Otherwise, we talked about this, the risk of going 0-3, like, you're done. You're not getting into the playoffs with an 0-3 start. So,
and the hype around Tua is like insanity right now. I mean, he's the MVP. I'd give it to him. He's the MVP of the league right now as to what he's done in the first 2 weeks throwing the football. And okay, Chargers defense is not great. Patriots defense is really good, and he really did a good thing in prime time against the Patriots on Sunday night last week. So I'll be very curious to see what he looks like and what the Broncos bring to the table, because I mean, man, 0-3 with a new head coach coming in and a quarterback at the tail end of his career. This has the potential to go south in a hurry in Denver. Like,
it does.
Time.
It does. But the Denver pass defense was good last year. Like, I don't know what happened to the Broncos in the second half against Sam Howell and the Commanders last week. Like, that was just bizarre. But, like, in theory, this is a pretty good pass defense. So, maybe they can keep it close and pull something out at the end. Yeah, but I'm kind of avoiding this one.
I am too. This is on a side perspective. I lean towards Denver covering the 6 and Denver potentially winning the game outright. But I do think points get scored between Denver and Miami, even though the numbers would tell you that this is an underplay. I mean, the Miami Dolphins last year at home were consistently under, and I'm just kind of going against that because I've seen a bunch of people in the content space saying, look at last year, Miami at home, the other team gets to sit in the sun and they bake on that sidelines. It's on purpose. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, but it's only going to be 85 degrees down there. It's going to be really pretty good weather, not like 95. It can be early in September here in late September. So I think Denver should be okay to score. And boy, if they can't score on this Dolphins defense, I mean, Denver better get going offensively. This is the game that the books don't know what to do with, Pat. Buffalo, Washington. Number was 5.5 at open. It's 5.5 at most books right now. 44 is the total for this game. I mean, this is weird because I know Washington has a defensive line and they can get after the quarterback, and that might get into Josh Allen's kitchen. But the Bills can't lose this game, can they?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm just going with class here and taking the Bills. Like, I think the number's too small, and I don't know. I feel like it's getting artificially inflated by the second half comeback that Washington had against Denver last week. And I feel like that collapse was more on Denver just falling apart than it was on Washington really, having some great achievements to get back and win that game. So yeah, I like the Bills here. I'm willing to lay the points.
So I pulled this down. It was 6 for a second. I pulled this down and it was I got it. Well, no, actually I know I didn't tweet that. I was gonna pull that down. I didn't pull that. I did. This was the one that fell off the card. I was gonna pull this down and I didn't because I don't know what to do with this because I've seen people say Washington 5 is the number the books put up when they say you tell us what direction to go, betting public or pros. They didn't move. So this is like even the pros are like, we don't really know what to do with this game. That number is very weird. Buffalo wins the game. They're a pretty high pick this week in survivor pools. But if I was going to do it, if it got to 6, I would pull it down. I don't think it got to 6. That's at 5 actually. Circa here in Vegas is at 5. So more Washington money coming in. Maybe the rain is the reason. Detroit hosting Atlanta. The total was 6. Dropped down to 3 at most books, 3.5. Circa's at 3.5 right now. They got off of 3. So money coming in late on Detroit. 47.5 at certain books, 47 at most books for the total in this one. Run fest. You like the over, right?
I actually do, Matt. I mean, as our own Andrew Erickson pointed out in the BettingPros betting primer this week, Ford Field is the Coors Field of the NFL. Like, there's just high scoring. And dating back to last season, Matt, the Lions' last 5 home games have all produced more than 50 points. And since Jared Goff joined the Lions in 2021, Lions home games are producing an average of 55.2 points. It is the Coors Field of the NFL. So, and the Lions gave up 393 yards and 37 points to the Seahawks when the Seahawks were without both of their starting offensive tackles last week. So, the Falcons offense is slow paced and run heavy, but it is a pretty efficient offense. They produced 25 and 24 points in their first 2 weeks. I do think this game goes over.
One more game in the early slate before we get to those disgusting afternoon games that you talked about, 3 of them that are really nasty. Indianapolis against the Ravens. This is Colts going back to the place they used to play in. And I know people say that factors into 0 of this game, and I would agree with that up to a point because there are some fans in there that from the Colt perspective hate the Ravens and will always hate the Ravens, and vice versa. There's younger fans that just hate to hear about the Boomers talking about, all the great years the Colts had and how they left in the middle of the night and went to Baltimore and blah, blah, blah. So what do you make of this one? Because I pulled this down. I took this from 7.5 down to 1.5. Colts might stay in the game, but I think the Ravens win by 3 or more.
Yeah, I like what you did. And early in the week, I grabbed the Ravens at 8. And I kind of wish I'd laid off, especially seeing what the weather report is going to be. Maybe that kind of keeps things a little closer. But I wonder about the Colts' ability to hang. And again, the Colts are one of these teams not really incentivized to win this year. And I just like the Ravens at home against an overmatched opponent. Like, I know they haven't been super great against the number at home lately, but I still think they are the pick here. Kind of a reluctant pick. I like moving it down. Yeah. If I had a do-over on that one, I would maybe do that and may yet before kickoff.
Just win the game. Just win the game.
Yep.
Baltimore, they don't need to kill them. Their offensive line is in shambles at the moment. They got injuries all over the place. Defensive injuries are mounting for them, obviously. So it's just, to me, this is just a win the game. You're a better football team, top to bottom. It's just win the game. But how you do it and by how many points, I don't think they really care all that much. All right, 3 games in a late slate. We can spend, a couple seconds on each one. Carolina's on the road against Seattle. No Bryce Young starting here. Backup quarterback. Number now is 5 for Seattle. Must win for Seattle, right?
It is. And kind of surprised this number's so low, Matt. Like Seattle, they need to win this, and Carolina just hasn't shown us anything. Not in the regular season, not in the preseason when they look terrible. Like we haven't seen anything from this team yet. I mean, maybe Andy Dalton is actually an upgrade for them offensively.
What about Adam Thielen? I've seen people say that Thielen was not utilized the way he should have been, and he's going to have a big game with Dalton at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, and his total's at like 37.5. I actually do like the over and wrote him up as one of my best bets for player props this week. Like I kind of think the veteran quarterback leans on the veteran receiver this week.
Makes sense.
And we saw Thielen get 9 or 10 targets last week.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Carolina can't win the game though, can they?
Man, I don't think so. But I'm nervous that this number is so much lower than I thought it should be. So there are obviously people out there who think Carolina can make this a game.
Yeah, the weather is interesting. There is some weather in Seattle that needs to be, watched. It's not going to be really bad, but it looks like there could be some influence there with some rain throughout the entire game. Building throughout the game, light should be steady. Just take a look at it. It's not going to be really bad, but there could be some weather in the area for Seattle that will be impacting things a little bit. Boy, Dallas at Arizona. Number opened up 10.5. It's up to 12.5. It hasn't really moved all week. Total's 43.5. I won't watch a single second of this football game. I have no money on it and no interest. What do you make on Dallas, Arizona?
Man, Dallas has outscored their opponents 70-10 so far, and they're going against a team that doesn't want to win games this year. I'm almost inclined to lay the points. Even without Trayvon Diggs, and I know that was a morale crushing injury for the Cowboys to have. I just can't imagine how they don't win this game by at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it would be stunning if this game was close. It would basically be because the Cowboys aren't paying attention. They just don't care, and they just go ahead and win the game by 7 points or something. But I cannot see them losing. And then the last game is Chicago before we get to the Sunday night game. Chicago on the road at Kansas City. Let's recap the week for the Bears. Well, first, Justin Fields criticized the entire coaching staff and had to go back and apologize after practice because he was saying, I'm responsible, not the coaches. So that was a great look. Then the DC quit halfway into the week. He decided, I'm not going to be a part of this. It's Chiefs week. I'm not coaching this defense up. I'm out of here. All sorts of things ran around as to what the guy was doing. It's kind of slowly leaking out that it was some type of inappropriate behavior, but it sounds like it wasn't illegal behavior. And then they lost $100,000 worth of equipment because somebody broke into Hallis Hall and stole everything. And I forget, it was Ryan Clark who said if they didn't steal the playbook, they didn't take enough. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're here on that. I pulled the KC Chiefs down to 6.5. It's the other leg of my teaser. It's Ravens and the Chiefs. I mean, KC's not going to have a problem here, are they?
I don't trust KC with big numbers, Matt. Sometimes they are the cat that plays with the wounded mouse and don't put them away. I've seen them do this. I saw them do this against the Raiders last year. So I do think pulling it down is the right way to go. I just can't bring myself to lay all of those points, even though and maybe Justin Fields does go back. He's talked about playing less robotically and more instinctively. That makes it sound like he's just going to run the ball more aggressively and just, look to run all.
Doesn't that play into Chris Jones's hands?
You would maybe, but Fields is a pretty sensational runner. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's how they keep the chains moving and keep this game somewhat close. I'm certainly not betting the Bears, but I don't know if I can lay all those points.
Nah, I hear the 12.5. That's why I pulled it down. Cause I was like, you know what, give me at 12.5, I can go under 7 and get it to 6.5 and get a 7-point win for the Chiefs. And we're good. I don't know if they win it by 14 or more. I could easily see a backdoor touchdown coming in with the Bears scoring, making the final score look a little prettier than it actually is. But I don't trust that Bears defense. And this is Kelsey and Mahomes. This is your stat patter game for those two. And so that's why I like over 25.5 completions for Patrick Mahomes. I think he's going to dink and dunk and throw a bunch here up against this Bears defense. And I don't think the Bears have much of a way of stopping it. So I think Mahomes has a big day with completions.
Yeah, Bears have the worst pass rush in the league. They have no pass rush to speak of. So I could very easily see that total coming in for you.
Speaking of bad, the Pittsburgh Steelers have the worst rush defense in the NFL on paper. It's amazing to watch it. Raiders, Sunday Night Football. Number was a pick. It's been steamed to 2.5. This thing might go to 3. We'll see what ends up happening. It feels like the pros, if it gets to 3, they're going to grab the Steelers because most of them are on the Raiders at pick. So they'll pull up a natural middle for themselves. The books will be very worried about getting sided on this, where they'll lose. It'll be a 3 and it'll fall, it'll be a push, and then they lose on the other side. You like the Steelers. I like the Raiders. Why do you like Pittsburgh on the road tonight?
Well, you mentioned the home field advantage that isn't for the Raiders, Matt. That's part of it. We know the Steelers, like for any team that travels well, the Raiders are not going to have a home field advantage, and the Steelers certainly travel well. I trust Mike Tomlin's guys to show up for him more than I trust Josh McDaniels' guys to show up for him. And I know there are a lot of interesting conundrums here with this dysfunctional Steelers offense going against the 31st ranked in DVOA defense with the Raiders, 32 versus 31 offense defense match. Steelers can't stop the run. Raiders haven't been able to run the ball. So there's a lot of that going on, but the Steelers defense is 12th in DVOA overall, and they can definitely put heat on the quarterback. So I think they might be able to make the Raiders offense look one-dimensional. We know Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't do well when he's put under pressure, and I think that's going to be the case here. Steelers special teams have been pretty good in terms of DVOA. So I think they're going to be able to do enough to pull this game out. To me, it's the coaching factor. I know Tomlin is going to get his guys up for battle, and I just don't know if Josh McDaniels' guys are going to show up for him in any given week.
Home opener. Devontae Adams is fine. Minka Fitzpatrick is not. He's going to play, but he's not. It's a big matchup, big problem in the secondary, I think, there. But I think you're going to see Josh Jacobs. I talked to Adam Hill, who's one of the beat reporters here in Vegas covering the Raiders, and the guy who's really tapped into the team. They're going to hammer the rock. They're going to run Josh Jacobs. They're going to try to really take advantage of what they've seen from that poor rush defense from the Steelers. I have Josh Jacobs over 15.5 carries tonight. That's my fourth prop bet here. I think that they're going to feed him a lot, and I think they're going to try to get that running game going and really try to play not really ball control, but just try to control the way the game's going to go, because the Raiders defense, if this game wasn't in primetime, I would bet the over in this game. But it being in primetime has scared me away, because primetime unders are just such a thing right now. We aren't seeing teams, for whatever reason, scoring much in primetime, and most of these games have been snoozers. I just can't trust Matt Canada. Supposedly there was some announcement that came out today that they have elevated Matt Canada to a more prominent role in the offense. He's going to work more closely, not the other way around, not Matt Canada getting fired. Matt Canada is going to have a bigger role in this offense. What is that? If you're a Steeler fan, you're chanting fire Matt Canada during the game at home last week up against the Browns, and you find out this morning this guy's getting a bigger role.
Yeah, you name the offensive metric, and every single one looks gross for the Steelers so far this year, Matt. Can I give out one more player prop I really like involving a running back in this game? I like Jaylen Warren over 2.5 receptions. And part of that is that we've got the Raiders who like to play cover 2 and give up stuff underneath. And the Jaylen Warren usage so far in the passing game, 12 targets, 9 receptions through 2 games. He is their passing down guy. I think he sails over 2.5 receptions easily.
Where is Najee Harris? What is going on?
I'm hoping it's been the bad matchup so far. I mean, they got the 49ers, maybe the best run defense in the league. And last week, the Ravens are no picnic as far as a matchup either. So we'll see.
All right, before we run, let's look at these final numbers for a Wong teaser to give you guys. It is still 7.5. So the Jaguars and the Jags and the Texans, that game at 43, that qualifies. So we can pull the Jags down to -1.5. Patriots and the Jets still staying here at 2.5, which is good. So we can take the Jets and go the Jets up to +8.5. I am going to give myself a natural middle there, Pat. I'm going to create it myself. Patriots -2.5, Jets +8.5. Let's see if we can get a 4-point win for the Patriots and have it fall right in between the two to try to kind of thread the needle there between on both sides. So Wong teaser is Jags and Jets here, 2 home teams, home dogs. Jags are favorite. Sorry, pull it down to 1.5. Basically, Jags money line, and go ahead and get the Jets at plus 8.5, not to get blown out by the Patriots. That side does worry me. I'm not gonna lie. Just don't know how the Patriots win by 10 points. Like, it's just not typical for the Patriots to do that. But I have Patriots minus 2.5. So if they do that, it's a wash on either side. We'll be down on the juice. Your 3-player props are what again?
Jaylen Warren over 2.5 receptions. I like Bijan Robinson over 68.5. They just haven't figured out where to set Bijan yet. And not only that, I mean, I've got him. I like some of the alternative props for him. You get 3-1 on over 100 yards. I think that's value. Bijan is that good. He's just a special.
Are they going to give him the carries?
Dude, yeah, he had 19 last week. I know they didn't in week 1 with only 10, but 19 carries in week 2. And last one, Darnell Mooney under 30.5 receiving yards. Like this Bears passing game is just broken. Granted, Mooney did have 4 catches for 53 yards in week 1, but that's because Jair Alexander for the Packers was smothering DJ Moore and Fields had to go somewhere with the ball. Also, he's coming back from a knee injury. He didn't even play in week 2, so we don't know if Mooney is 100%.
Very cool. My player props are Zach Wilson under 177.5 passing yards. Justin Herbert over 283.5 passing yards. Josh Jacobs over 15.5 rushing attempts for the Raiders, and Patrick Mahomes over 25.5 completions for the KC Chiefs. We're going with a Wong teaser. If you're just joining us, Jets and Jags. I've also teased the Chiefs and the Ravens. Patriots minus 2.5, Raiders minus 2.5. Pat and I are on the opposite side of that game. And also he likes the under in the game that's going to start here in 20 minutes between the Chargers and the Vikings. I like the over. Maybe I push, you win, lands on 54 on the exact number, lands on it. And we're both somewhat happy here on that. So we'll see how that game plays out. Pat, last thoughts before we run?
Well, that's it. I always hate being on the opposite side of this many totals with someone as sharp as you, Matt. But maybe we'll just push and win all our sides and teasers.
All right. I had 2 pushes yesterday. Amazingly enough, I pushed on Notre Dame and I pushed on Rutgers, and I could have covered both and I could have lost both. So just one of those things when it comes. The bookmakers, the numbers are good, and the numbers are good in the NFL. So we'll see how. I think it comes down to 1%. It could be like 51 or 55. Like it could be like on either side of that number. I think we could be seeing it with the Vikings and the Chargers. But, I don't hate the idea that the game goes under simply because, well, it's the Vikings at home. And who knows what the hell happens when the Vikings play at home. Pat, good stuff. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks. We have a lot to get to, guys. BettingPros, the app. If you've not downloaded it, go do it now. The player props, the prop bet cheat sheet. It's where I get a ton of my stuff. You can sync and track your bets, view performance across sports, bet types, and books, follow users, tail their bets, and see how your betting instincts stack up against others. Download it now. It's in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store for free. You can track your own bets as well on there as well. It's where I get my player props. I do my research on the BettingPros app with the prop bet cheat sheet for NFL, for NBA. It's tremendous. Download it today. Go get it and sync your bets with BettingPros. Search it in the App Store, BettingPros. Pat, thank you very much. Best of luck, everybody. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't yet. More to come later today and the rest of the weekend here with BettingPros.